हेलो फ्रेंड्स, अब हम लोग आए हैं नेशनल पार्क सर्विस यूएस डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इंटीरियर मैमथ। आवर ऑफ ऑपरेशन 9 AM to 5 PM। तो अब हम लोग बिल्कुल इन टाइम हैं। तो अब चलिए अंदर चलते हैं और एक्सप्लोर करते हैं। न्यू एक्साइटिंग ऑन द वे जाते हैं। डलास से ऑस्टिन को जाते हुए रास्ते में है ये। तो लेट्स सी।
Had to have been their own. It was a reddish-brownish color and had been in the cave for tens of thousands of years, so our artist had to take his best guess on what his hair color would have been by mixing together a few different colors of hair. Now, would he have had this awesome bowl cut right here / mullet? Probably not, but he's from Texas, so we had to give him a good mullet. Now, we also don't have evidence of their soft tissues like their ears, so we also had to hypothesize as to what those would have looked like and the size of them as well. Our woolly mammoths don't have very large ears since they lived in the extremely cold climates. If they had large ears like our African elephants, they would get frostbite very easily and pretty much fall off. Versus our African elephants that have those bigger floppy ears that they use to cool themselves down with. So our artist went with a good in-between size for our big fella right back here behind me. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about this mural? Alrighty, let's move on to our second mural right behind you, and then I promise we'll get down into the bone bed that y'all are so excited to see. So this depicts what we believe our prehistoric Texas would have looked like. As I mentioned, the temperatures would have been pretty comparable to today. There would have been rolling grasslands as well as abundance in vegetation and water. We are located half a mile in between both the Bosque and the Brazos River, so this would have been a floodplain area at the time and would have been abundant in resources. Now this depicts our original nursery herd with our matriarch right here, the grandma of the herd, as well as all of her offspring coming together to raise their baby mammoths. Now, this mural also depicts one of our earliest hypotheses. We originally hypothesized that something along a flash flood or mudslide came and instantly killed and buried our herd. Thanks to our paleontologist, she has told us that the bones tell a little bit of a different story. So, with that being said, does anybody have any questions about this mural up here before we get down to the bones?
Is that a horse or a camel?
So, that in the picture is actually a camel. That is going to be our guest star here. We nicknamed her Flo, as she's going with the flow of the water in the mural.
That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am. Any more questions?
So were there camels here?
Yeah, so were there camels here? There actually were camels here, and we have evidence of one in the bottommost layer in the bone bed. Yes. So let's get down into the bone bed and see our special guest star. So, in this bottommost layer, right down here, this dates back 65,000 years ago. This is going to be the same layer of sediment that our nursery herd was found in outside. So we do believe that our Mammoth S right here would have been traveling with that original nursery herd. When we first uncovered her, we believed she was a juvenile. Thanks to our paleontologist, she pointed out that she is actually an adult. That's due to the fact that some of her bones have started fusing together that we do not see until adulthood. So that tells us that she is considerably smaller in size than other mammoths found in the area at her age. She also noticed, when taking a closer look, that there were some pitting in her bones. That tells us her body was so deprived of nutrients, she started reabsorbing the calcium from within her bones. We also notice on both her, as well as our western camel over here, our guest star, that they both show signs of scavenging marks, telling us that they were exposed to the elements for quite some time and not initially buried like we had originally thought. Due to her small size, as well as the pitting in her bones, our paleontologist has come up with a bit of a different hypothesis, that something more along the lines of a severe drought kills our nursery herd. There wasn't enough nutrients and resources to be able to support the herd, and they would have died over a series of days or even weeks within this spot, as they were not strong enough and there wasn't more resources to go exploring. So within this same layer, we do have the western camel over here. Now, some of y'all might be shocked to see our camel. Some of y'all might not know that our camels actually originated from this area. They would then cross the Bering Land Bridge and get over to the Gobi Desert, where they are more popularly known to be today. They would also travel farther down south, and that's how you get your modern day llamas and alpacas. So this would be one of their ancestors. This specific species of camel is now extinct. However, she would have been a few feet taller than our modern day camel, and we also noticed some differences in her jaw. We noticed that she actually has canine teeth, which our modern day camels do not have. So this wouldn't have changed her diet. She still would have eaten grass along the same lines as our mammoths would have. However, she just would have used these teeth for more self-defense purposes when fighting. Now, our mammoths, just for reference, they would have to eat 600 to 700 pounds of grass per day. To put that into perspective, that is one large round bale of grass per day per mammoth. They would then have to drink 50 to 80 gallons of water per day per mammoth. That's a pretty large order just for one. You could imagine trying to feed the original nursery herd of 16.
Yeah.
Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about that bottommost layer that we pointed out first?
So these
the Bosque and the Brazos roughly where they are now, then?
Are the two rivers in the same area? Yes, they would have been roughly in the same area, and this is one of the lower points within the area. So this would have been a floodplain area, as the Waco Dam wouldn't have been built back then.
Seems that they would have, if you're going to die, why die in the middle of an arid area instead of going closer to the river? Maybe there'd be more vegetation.
Right. We believe that the matriarch would have known that this area would have been abundant in resources at the time, as it would have been able to hold more water at the time. So that's why she would have come to this area, and maybe the riverbeds were already dried by that point, and so this was one of her last resorts to come to. Any more questions?
so these are the real bones, and we found it here.
Yes, exactly. These are the real bones. They're what's called subfossils, so they have not reached the fossilization point yet, and they never will, since we have exposed them to the elements, and we also do not have the correct nutritions in our soil to be able to fully fossilize these bones.
Okay.
So they are still in that bone state. Awesome. Any more questions?
So how do the bones fossilize? What does it mean by going into the fossil stage?
Yeah, so what does it mean for the bones to fossilize, and how do they fossilize? So a lot of the bones that they do find that are fossilized are going to be dinosaur bones. So it takes a much longer period of time than tens of thousands of years for a bone to fully fossilize. You would also need different minerals and nutrients in your soils, like places like a peat bog that are more high in nutritions and have a softer soil there. They're able to more densely compact everything and put all the nutrients together to fully mineralize and fossilize the bones to make them to that fossilization point. It would also just take a longer period of time as well, so that's why these guys never got to that point.
How do you know a bone is fossilized?
Yeah, so how do we know a bone is fossilized? So that is going to be due to the fact of how much they weigh, as well as what they feel like as well, the density of the subject. So up at the front tent, if you haven't seen it before you came in, we do have a mammoth tooth that is fossilized up there, and if you try to pick it up, it's considerably heavy, and it's only half of a tooth. So your fossils will be considerably heavier, as they are at more of that stone state than they are our bones here. The easiest thing to compare our bones to is pretty much like sidewalk chalk. They can be almost that same consistency and that same brittleness as our sidewalk chalk is. That's why we have to be so strict about not allowing any food or drinks in here, as if they do get wet, it can severely damage our bones here.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome questions.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Alrighty, let's move up a layer in sediment. So, up here is going to be our mammoth queue. As you heard me say outside, there were no males in the original nursery herd, And yet you come in here and you see our big adult male. That is because he actually came about 15,000 years later than our original nursery herd. He just happened to die in the exact same spot as our herd. We can tell he came so much later due to the level and elevation. He's actually standing at about 2 to 3 feet higher than our original nursery herd. This column right here is what's called a witness column. So the sediment was up at the top whenever they started their excavation, all the way down to the most recent digging. So he came just about 15,000 years later. In saying that, we can't say exactly how he passed away or what caused his death, since he was not with that original nursery herd. We can positively identify that he is a male due to his pelvic opening. I'll do a quick anatomy scan of him. This is going to be his skull right here. It is a bit caved in. That could be caused to the weight of sediment that was placed on top of him before we uncovered him. His 2 long tusks that would be made out of the same material, ivory, as our modern day elephants. We have his vertebrae sticking straight up right here, his ribs on either side, his right front leg, his left leg would be trapped underneath him, his pelvis with that smaller, more circular pelvic opening that we see in males, as well as his back 2 legs. Now, as I mentioned, we can't say specifically how Mammoth Q died, but we do notice that he did sustain an injury at some point in his life. If you look over here at his rib bones, specifically this one with the rounded nodule on it, we can see that he broke that rib at some point in time, and it started healing back together. That is a very common injury we see in our mammoths as well as our modern day elephants, as when they are fighting during mating season, they can easily throw their tusks up against another mammoth, or once they're locked up, try to turn out of that position and easily crack a rib. So he could have succumbed to that injury, could have had other underlying conditions. However, we cannot say for sure that that is what killed him. Now, in this same layer of sediment, we do also have evidence of some other mammoth bones right here. The Mammoth V and the Mammoth R over here that we are still working on uncovering. All we can say about these bones is that they are positively identified as mammoth bones that came around the same point in time as Mammoth Q, give or take a few years. We have not uncovered more of the complete skeletons to be able to determine their exact age or sex. Does anybody have any questions about this side of the bone bed before I move on?
Continuing to excavate further down in this area?
Yeah, so do we plan on continuing the excavation further down below our Mammoth Q? As of this point right now, we're pretty much keeping them in situation. As I mentioned, their bones are very fragile, so if we dig out underneath them, we wouldn't have the stabilization of the sediment below them to be able to support them. We also haven't noticed evidence of any more mammoth bones being underneath them, sticking up out of the soil or out of the sidewall so far, so they haven't started excavating below that yet. Any more questions?
Good.
The difference between the 2 types of mammoth is 15,000. Is it only because of the positioning of their
Yes.
fossils, or also because of carbon dating?
Yes, of course. So carbon dating, she asked a question about carbon dating. So mainly how we can tell their difference in age is going to be the level of sediment that they're in, as the uppermost level of sediment is going to be the newer stuff, and as you get farther down, that's going to be the older stuff. Now, we have tried carbon dating our bones here. However, the specimen has to be younger than 50,000 years old. When we put it in for carbon dating, we don't get anything back, so we are able to say that they are older than 50,000 years old. Exactly. Any more questions? Alrighty. Let's move around the corner over here, where we will see our Mammoth W on the right.
इतना बड़ा है ना, तो टूर चल रही है, तो ये से मैं वीडियो डालता हूँ so that आप लोगों को information कंटिन्यू पूरी मिले.
So right here on the right hand side is going to be our Mammoth W. This is going to be our female mammoth, as we can tell with their pelvic openings. If you notice, she has a much larger, more diamond to oval shaped pelvic opening than our mammoth Q did. So that does positively identify her as a female mammoth. She also has the best set of teeth in the house. If you look over here, this is going to be her bottom jaw with her bottom 2 teeth, and her top jaw with her top 2 teeth. Now our mammoths only had 4 teeth, 4 grinding molars. They would grind their teeth together to grind their grass up to be able to eat it. Mammoths would also get up to 6 sets of teeth in their lifetime. Their first set of teeth would be about the size of a $50, and if they reached that 6th and final set, it would be about the size of an adult shoebox. So their teeth would get considerably large. We believe that our Mammoth W was on her 3rd or 4th set of teeth at her time of death, placing her at around 25 years old. Now our females have a much longer life expectancy than our males do, due to the fact that they get the advantage of staying in that nursery herd with the matriarch that has all of the knowledge as to where the best places to go for resources would be, as well as the dangerous places to avoid would be.
Good.
So our females would live to about 70 years old, where our males would only live to about 25 years old.
Ooh.
So our females would live considerably longer than our males would. We're not able to place her specifically within our timeline. We don't know if she was with the original nursery herd or closer to Mammoth Q's time, as the geology on the bone bed is quite weird and has a drop off over here beneath the bridge and not a gentle slope down to the bottom. We have tried carbon dating, as I had mentioned over there, and we are able to positively say that she is older than 50,000 years old, since we didn't get anything back from the carbon dating. The only other thing we can say about our Mammoth W is that it was warm during her time here. That is due to the giant tortoise shell fragment right over here. It is the size and shape of a butterfly. So fragment is a very important word used there. So what might seem insignificant to the untrained eye can actually tell us a lot more as to what the mammal's time was like here. So that tells us that it would have been warm here, as reptiles or tortoises in general are not able to withstand the extreme cold. Any questions about our Mammoth W over here? How long can they have babies? So their gestation stage, their gestation period, is about 2 years in length, similar to our modern day elephants. Oh, gotcha. I don't know if there's a specific age cutoff if they would reach menopause at some point like us humans do. I do know, however, that during the nursery herd, the older matriarch, I don't believe she would still continue having children, as she would have her younger adults to have the children, and she would be the more protector, guardian of the group. We have a few more guests trying to enter, so I'm going to go let them in real quick. And then I will continue the end of our tour. But they can only have babies about every 5 years, as they do carry them for 2 years and nurse for 2 to 3 years afterwards. So they can only have babies about every 5 years. Hello.
Hi.
Do y'all have any food or drinks on y'all?
No.
Okay. Awesome. We're fixing to be ending off our tour here soon. So y'all are welcome to take a look and then ask any questions y'all have. We do close in about 14 minutes.
White color ka patthar.
Nope, the only restroom is going to be up there at the welcome center.
Giant tortoise hai.
Alrighty, so any more questions about our Mammoth W over here?
There is a small dot.
Alrighty, there's a few more things I'd like to point out on this side of the bone bed before we end off our tour. So, there is a sign down below that says saber-toothed cat. That is referring to this singular tooth right here. That is actually a kitten tooth of a saber-toothed cat. And that tooth is about a little bit bigger than the size of your pinky. Now, saber-toothed cats still have their baby teeth as their adult teeth are coming in. So the most we can say is that a saber-toothed cat was walking along here at some point and lost one of its teeth. However, that is the only evidence we have of a saber-toothed cat being in this area. There's also this other sign that says even-toed mammal. That is referring to these rib bones that sit right above it. And the most we can say about these rib bones is based upon the size, we believe it's an animal of along the lines of a deer or antelope type of creature. Could have been a relative of our modern day white-tailed deer. However, we don't have any more of its complete skeleton to determine the exact species, age, or sex. Does anybody have any questions about anything you see inside of the bone bed so far? Alrighty. We have one replica up here I'd like to point out before we end off the tour. Yes. So right over here on the right-hand side is going to be our replica of that Columbian mammoth femur bone that Paul and Eddie found outside in the creek bed. This was the rounded edge that was sticking out of the side wall, and that is the 3-foot bone that they uncovered. Right next to it is a human adult femur bone, just for size comparison to show you how much bigger these mammals are than we are today. This is also going to be our
This
paleontologist.
was the rounded part that he found.
Yes, that was just sticking out of the
I
side.
can see where he would think it was a skull.
Right, exactly, a skull of some sort, exactly. And this is going to be our paleontologist workstation over here. As you see, they are actively working on opening up those plaster jackets from the original nursery herd that was found outside. So it is a very slow and tedious process, but they are still actively working on opening all of those up, as well as sifting through the sediment that we have dug out of the bone pit already. As I had mentioned, even the smallest fragment of fossils can tell us more about what the mammals' time was like during their time here. So that
These are the real bones.
yes, those are the real bones from the original herd that was found out in the creek bed.
Okay, good.
Yes. Does anybody have any more questions?
This is a real bone.
Alrighty, this is pretty much the end of the guided portion of the tour. I am going to be closing up the building in about 10 minutes, but within that time, you're welcome to ask me questions, take more photos and videos, read the plaques. You can exit through either of these exits. They both meet up at that same trail that brought you down here. And other than that, thank you so much for visiting us.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you very much for
Of
all
course.
your information.
Yes, sir. I guess I'll give you your microphone back.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was very informative section.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me know if you have any more questions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you guys. This was the video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned and stay connected for more videos. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you.